All right. Good evening, Daf Yomi enthusiasts. This week's Daf Yomi is sponsored by Rabbi Aaron and 11 Kislasi. Can't say that. I'll try again. Le'ilui Nishmas, Rabbi Aaron's grandfather, Aaron ben Shimon, whose yahrzeit is on the 8th of Iyar, and B'schus Refuah Shlema for Yaakov ben Dina Chedva. So, we discussed on Ches Amud Beis. We moved on in the Mishnah, right? That if you have a korban, that there is let's start like this. First of all, we know that a circumstance where you know you have awareness, forget, and then awareness again, that's your standard korban olav yored that we had gotten, right? What if you have a circumstance? So then you have awareness and forgetfulness, but you don't have any awareness yet at the end. So he said that is going to be the offering that is made inside the Beis Hamikdash, right? That's the Eiz Hanasa Befnim, that's Chatas Hanasa Befnim. We slaughtered it, we sprinkled the blood inside. Then we started talking about the very end of the shiur yesterday, that let's say you don't have any initial awareness. Now we're into type 3. No initial awareness, right? But you do have awareness at the end. Now, since you had no initial awareness, you can't bring a korban olav yored for this. So how's that going to help you? So that we said was the goat offering, which was made on the outside, the musaf of Yom Kippur. That's the musaf offering of Yom Kippur. Okay, so we had noted that we have, and we're going to see this a lot of the drashos repeated over and over. So therefore, because there's similarities between the various opinions, right? This is the start off where the Mishnah says, according to the Tanna Kama, right, that this korban is for this purpose only, right? One korban is for the purpose of one type of tumah that you forgot about. One type of korban is for a different circumstance. Each one is for its own circumstance. So we said, well, there's a hekesh, a connection, right, that connected the inner korban chatos to the outer korban chatos, and that they're listed in the same pasuk together in Bamidbar. So therefore, if they're listed together, maybe there's some sort of connection between the types of atonements they can achieve. And so therefore, we ended off just by mentioning that, well, no, the pasuk says, achas, right, that there's going to be one atonement, that there's only going to be one type of korban that atones for this type of avera, and that only this korban can atone for this type of avera, meaning that this inner korban, despite the fact that there's a linkage between the inner korban and the outer korban, that each one has their own purpose. So the two do not overlap. One is the purpose, as we just said, is for the circumstance where you became aware and then you forgot, and that's the end of the story. And then we're in the situation where you didn't have awareness and then you became aware, and that's the end of the story. Now we move on to the top of Tes Amud Aleph. Tes Amud Aleph says, L'Rebbe Yishmael, Damar ein ba yediyah batchila v'yesh ba yediyah basof, bar karbanhu. Now, the one little wrench in the works is that earlier on in the Mishnah we had Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. He had held that if you are of the circumstance, right, where you don't know first, but then you become aware, that was actually a korban olav yored too, right? Everybody else disagreed. Everybody else says, no, you need to have awareness, then forgetfulness and awareness. But Rabbi Yishmael said, no, just you forgot, you forgot, and then you became aware at the end. So if that's the case, that overlaps this korban. This korban of the musaf for Yom Kippur is exactly the same circumstance. So then, Rabbi Yishmael de Amar ein ba yediyah batchila v'yesh yediyah basof bar karbanhu, according to Rabbi Yishmael, who says that the circumstance where you don't know at the beginning but you become aware at the end, that's a circumstance where you bring a korban olav yored. So sir hanasa b'chutz amay mechaper. Well, then you're going to have a struggle. Then what is the purpose of this korban musaf on the outside? You just said it was only for that purpose. So al she'ein bo yediyah lo batchila v'lo basof. The answer is, it must be the next circumstance, where you don't have any awareness. Not at the beginning, not at the end. We move on, we skip that one, we go right on to the next circumstance. The problem with that is, if we moved on in the Mishnah says, Hai se'irei haregolim u'se'irei rashei chadashim mechaprin. That atonement is achieved by the musaf korbanos, which are on Yom Kippur and on the Yomim Tovim. So the answer is, Savar la Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yishmael is agreeing with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, which we're going to review today. De Amar, he is the one who holds Kol Hasirim Kaparasan Shaveh. He says, All of the Musaf Korbanos, Yom Kippur, Rosh Chodesh, and the Yom Tovim, all are for the same purpose. So it's not a problem. Those are all the same purpose. Al Tumos Mikdash Ukdoshav. It takes care of somebody who's Tameh, who comes in contact with the Beis HaMikdash or the Korbanos. So therefore, we're going to say across the board, all of them, when you didn't have any awareness before, you didn't have any awareness during, that's what all three of those Korbanos are for. And we'll see Rabbi Meir's opinion as we get on in a moment. Okay, so now that we've decided that the korban on the inside of the Beis HaMikdash on Yom Kippur and the korban that was brought during Musaf on the outer Mizbeach on Yom Kippur, they have their own individual purpose. They're not for the same thing. So then, why are they connected in the pasuk? What is the purpose of that connection? So the answer is Ma pnimi eino mechaper bishar averos. The answer is to tell me that just like the korban on the inside of the Beis HaMikdash has nothing to do with any other averos on Yom Kippur, right? That's the Azazel for that. So too, the Musaf korban on the outside also has nothing to do with other averos. It only has to do with Tuma, the avera of Tuma, touching the Beis HaMikdash or touching the korbanos. So that is what that's for. Okay, good. Now, we've gone through Yom Kippur sacrifices. We're pretty good there, right? We know what all of those are for. We know what the korban olav is for. Now we move on to the next case. Al she'ein ba yediah betchila velo basof. Let's say you have no awareness at the beginning, no awareness at the end. You never knew you were tamei ever. You ate your korban, you didn't find out you were tamei, you never knew you were tamei.
Until your wife told you when you got home.
You didn't even know. Nope. Well, that's going to come up. We're going to ask that question in a second. Okay? So, se'ire regalim, you're ahead of us. Se'ire regalim. Se'ire regalim, u'se'ire roshe chadashim mechaprin. So, the atonement for that is going to be the Musaf offerings, the goat sin offering, which is brought in the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. That's what that's for. Different Rabbi Yehuda, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says it's for. Okay? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. So Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. This is Rav Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, versus Rabbi Yehuda, right? Rav Yehuda is a Mora. Rabbi Yehuda is a Tana. My time at Rabbi Yehuda. What is the reason why Rabbi Yehuda holds what he holds? How does he know that that's the purpose of that korban? Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, U'se'ir izim echad lechatas lahashem. This goat offering, which is brought on Rosh Chodesh, is a sin offering for Hashem. So what does that mean? It's for Hashem. Chet she'ein makir bo ela Hashem. It's an avera that nobody knows about it. Only Hashem knows, right? Not your wife. Nobody knows about it, right? So then that's why this korban comes. Good?
You know about it. Nobody else.
No, you don't know about it.
You don't even know about it.
Right?
No.
You don't know about it.
Hashem knows.
You don't know at the beginning, you don't know at the end, you never found out about it, you might get punished for it. Therefore, the Rosh Chodesh Chatos takes care of you. Okay? Because it's going for the whole community. Right. So therefore, it's going to cover everybody who needs one. You don't even know you need one, but it's there for you. Right? It's like a good neighbor, right? Korban is there.
What's the equivalent today? On Rosh Chodesh, we do something?
We say we daven Musaf. Yeah, we daven Musaf, right? Yeah. So, Yehei Seir Zeh Mechaper. So this goat is going to atone for that. V'haimi by lekideresh lakish. So he says, but 1 second. Is that what this La Hashem is for? This La Hashem tells me it's an avera that only Hashem knows about. That's not what the reason why it says La Hashem by the korban of the Chatos by Rosh Chodesh. Dama Reish Lakish tells us the reason. Manishtana Seir Shel Rosh Chodesh Shenemar Bo La Hashem. Why is it that if you look in Parshas Pinchas and you take a look at all the Musafs, it says that there's a sin offering by Rosh Chodesh. It says it's a sin offering for Hashem. That's not written by any of the other Chatos. So Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem says, Seir Zeh Yehi Kapara Al Shemi Tatasi Es HaYereach. Hashem says, I need atonement because I made the moon smaller. We're familiar with the Medrash that originally when the world was created, the moon and the sun were the same size. And the moon came to complain about that and said, why are we the same size? Hashem said, good question. And he shrunk the moon, right? But he put them in the sky so that they look like they're the same size, but they're not. The moon is much smaller.
The moon's big mouth.
So therefore, Hashem has a little of atonement that he has to make for shrinking the moon. right? So therefore, right, it's interesting idea. So therefore, that's the chatos la Hashem on Rosh Chodesh. Yeah, Hashem brings a korban chatos. We bring korban chatos that serves to atone, so to speak, for Hashem who's perfect somehow. For good shear on that, right? Hashem there's an atonement necessary. That's what Reish Lakish is for. Now that means that if La Hashem is to tell me about that drush, then La Hashem is not telling me that the Musaf on Rosh Chodesh is for an Aveira that only Hashem knows about. So Im Kain, if that were true, if Reish Lakish was the only thing you could learn from the pasuk, Lemakra al Hashem, then it would say the atonement is for Hashem. My La Hashem. What does it mean in atonement to Hashem? Likida Amron. It's like we said. It's both things. It's an atonement for the Avera that Hashem did, as though, right? And it is an atonement for Averos that only Hashem knows about.
It's interesting, like just to point out, like this is thousands of years before the telescope was invented, and if you look, you would assume the moon is bigger than the sun, right? Yeah. It's like just a raya. If you think about it, it's
amazing thing that they knew, right?
Yeah, it makes me. Yeah. I mean, obviously they knew, but it's like it's another proof.
Now, the ema kule lahachahu da'asa. So okay, well then maybe La Hashem is telling me that it's just an atonement for an Avera that's secret to only Hashem. So then Reish Lakish's drush can be thrown away. We don't need Reish Lakish's drasha. So the answer is Im Kain Nema Kra Chatas Hashem. Then we would just say Chatas Hashem. My La Hashem. Why does it say to Hashem? So Shmas Mina Tarti. La Hashem means both the drashos, right? It's not Al Hashem, it's not just plain Hashem, it's La Hashem, which implies both drashos are valid. So we're going to keep Reish Lakish's drasha, and we're going to know that it atones for Tuma that you never knew about and are still currently unaware of. Okay, so now, next question. V'nechaper nami afilu bishar averos. So maybe this atonement, how do you know the korban? Fine, it'll atone for that. Maybe it atones for all Averos, not just Tuma Averos. Maybe, I guess, any Averos that you don't know about, right? It's going to take care of. So, Tana Debe Rabbi Yishmael. So, we learned in the Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael that Hoel V'zeh Brisa, right? That says Hoel V'zeh Ba Bizman Kavua. V'zeh Ba Bizman Kavua. So, we know a relationship between the Yom Kippur Korban, Musaf, and the Rosh Chodesh one. Just like one is established at a set time, so to the other one is said as an established time. Just like the Musaf of Yom Kippur only atones for the Avera of the being Tameh and coming in contact with the Korbanos that are Kodesh and the Beis HaMikdash.
Are one of the Alchits based on the Tuma?
I do not recall them that way. I don't think there's one that says Al-Chet Shechatanu, but Tumas Beis HaMikdash or something like that. I don't think so, but that's probably an uncommon Avera nowadays in any event. Right? Av zeh eino mechaper el al Tumas Mikdash Ukdoshav. So too, this one in Rosh Chodesh is for that purpose also. And we can recall that, how did we know it only applies to these Averos and not other things? Because it says Achas, like we said, it says Achas. This is going to atone, the Korban Musaf on Yom Kippur also only atones for the one of it. We said it was compared to the inner korban chatos, and the inner korban is only for the purpose of the one avera, not for any other averas. So therefore, now we know they're all connected only for tuma. All these korbanos are only for averas of tuma for all different circumstances. Okay, so now ashkechan seirei rashe chadashim. So fine, we've explained how the goat offering, the sin goat offering on Musaf for Yom Kippur for Rosh Chodesh, applies to an Avera where you don't know about it before and you never found out about it. Seirei haregalim minalan. Where do we know that the same applies to the goat offerings that are brought as a chatas on every Yom Tov? Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Pesach, Shevuos, and Shmini Atzeres. V'chi tema hanami kedetana de Beber Yishmael. So if you're going to say that you're going to also learn it from this brisa of Rabbi Yishmael, that since it has an established time, it must be dealing with korbanos that it must be dealing with an avera that has to do with tuma. That's what we said. So ikala meifrach. So you can ask the question: Imi derosh chodesh shekain tadir, imi yom hakipurim shekain meruba kaparaso. So he says, well, you could establish that those averos are already atoned for because it could be taken care of from the Yom Kippur, from the Rosh Chodesh, which occurs more often, You have those korbanos occur more often, or Yom Kippur, which has a much stronger ability to remove sins. So therefore, the Seirei Haragolim might be a different story. Right, you can't learn. So basically, I can't learn my Kal V'chomer from. We said, well, okay, they're all the same because they all have an established time. They're not all the same. They're very different. Rosh Chodesh is more common, and Yom Tovim and Yom Kippur has a stronger ability to do kapara. So therefore, we're going to need its own drasha. V'chi tema on Tesam Aves. Maybe you'll say Ha Gamrin on Rosh Chodesh Midi Yom Kippur. Velo Parchinon, you're going to ask the question, wait a second, how can you say that Yom Kippur can achieve a high level of atonement, and then we learned Rosh Chodesh, the rules of the Korban for Rosh Chodesh, by saying that just like the Musaf of Yom Kippur only atones for Averos that have to do with Tuma and Korbanos, so too the Korban of Rosh Chodesh only atones for those Averos that are Tuma and Rosh Chodesh. We didn't say, well, wait a second, Yom Kippur is much stronger than Rosh Chodesh, so how can you learn one from the other? So Hasam, Kapara Michtav Ksiva, Geluye Milsa Biamahu. The answer is, if you look at the Pasuk by Rosh Chodesh, it tells you that the Korban establishes a Kapara. So to tell me that the difference between the Rosh Chodesh and the Yom Kippur is that Yom Kippur gets you a kapara and Rosh Chodesh does not, is not true. The pasuk tells you it gives you a kapara. Now we wanted to know what kind of kapara. Well, now what kind of kapara? I can learn one from the other. Aval hacha, but when it comes to the musaf of the Yom Tovim, ikil meimar, you might think kula milsa lo gamrinon. We don't have any place in the psukim that indicate that there's a kapara that's going on here. Ella Kida'amar Reb Chama Bar Chanina. So therefore, how do we know that the korban of Musaf for the Yom Tovim is going to atone for this same Avera of Tuma in the Beis HaMikdash, and also a circumstance where you didn't know before and you have no knowledge during? The answer is Seir v'Seir. Seir. So if you look in Parshas Pinchas, right, it says Seir Chatas. Each time it goes through each of the ones. It starts with Shabbos, it goes to Rosh Chodesh, then it starts from Pesach, Shevuos, goes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, it goes in order of the Yom Tovim. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, right? So in most of them, not all of them, as we're going to see, when it says where the Korban Chatos, instead of writing Seir Echad lechatas, it says u'seir echad lechatas. The extra letter vav indicates that it connects to the previous korban chatos. So hachanami seir u'seir ve'itgush seirei regalim seirei roshei chadashim. So what's going to happen is that by the korban of Rosh Chodesh, it says the serizim, and then when it gets to Yom Tov next, when it gets over to Pesach, which is the next korban, it says u'seir izim. Why? And tell me that the korban here by Pesach is the same, has the same atonement as the one for Rosh Chodesh that was just mentioned. That's the extra vav of Useir tells me that. Just like Rosh Chodesh's offering is for the Avera of Tuma that you did not know about beforehand and never found out about, so too the Shalosh Regalim Averos and the Rosh Hashanah ones are for Einan Mechaprin El Al She'ein Ba Yediyah Lo Batchila V'Lo Basof is for the same thing, from the extra vav of Useir.
What do we bring on Rosh Hashanah? We bring for Rosh Chodesh and for...
We're always going to bring a seir, right? We're going to bring a seir lechatas for in each of those. And there's other korbanos to bring also, various shlamim, by Sukkot. There's tons of korbanos by the Musaf, right? But
7,
right, over a total for the whole time, right? But the seir echad lechatas is a common element. So we asked the following question. Ki Amar Rabbi Yehuda al she'ein ba yediyah lo batchila v'lo basof. When Rabbi Yehuda says that this atonement is for a circumstance where you have no awareness before and no awareness after, this is Yehuda's question. Okay, Yehuda's want to know, what if your wife knows? Right, you're going to get home, your wife's going to tell you, oh, you went to the Beis HaMikdash, you were tamei. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you were tamei. Right, what happens there? So is that hani mili b'chet she'ein sofa livada aval chet she'sofa livada k'mi sheyesh yediyah basof dami? So let's say you have this circumstance. Let's say the circumstance is that his wife knows, right? Yehuda's case, right? His wife knows. He does not know. So he didn't know before. He goes to the Beis Hamikdash. He does not know. He's tummy. He does not know. So under a regular circumstance, he has absolutely no idea. But then he comes home and his wife says, "Oh, you were tummy." What is the atonement for that circumstance? Is that a circumstance where he didn't know before and he didn't know during the Tumah? Meaning, therefore, it's going to be covered by the Rosh Chodesh and the Shalosh Regalim, or is that a circumstance of he didn't know before and then he does know at the end, right? We call that Sofo Livada. At the end, he will eventually find out, in which case it's going to be covered by the Yom Kippur one.
So he's not longer in the Ben Hamikdash when he knows.
He's not longer. What is
He's
it?
no longer in.
He's no longer. Yeah,
He's no
exactly.
longer there.
So therefore, that's the question. So now that he's no longer there, does it matter anymore? Right. So the answer is, how do you view this situation? The fact that he eventually finds out, does that matter, or does that not matter? So therefore, as I said, we'll read that again. Hani mili bechet she'ein sofo livada. Maybe this is a circumstance where it's an avera that there's no future way he's going to find out. But a chet where he doesn't know, he does the avera he doesn't know, and then afterwards he finds out. Kimisha yesh ba yadia basof dummy. Is that like a circumstance where he didn't know and then he finds out? V'seir hanase b'chutz v'yom kippur mechaper. And therefore, the atonement is the korban musaf on Yom Kippur for that circumstance. Or perhaps, even if he's eventually going to find out, at this point, it's an avera that only Hashem knows about, and therefore it is atoned by the Rosh Chodesh offering and the Shalosh Regalim offering.
I don't understand why it would be it's down in the first case. He finds out. His wife tells him. He now knows.
Because at the time he did the avera, he did not know. And there was no way that he would know.
But isn't that the whole point? Is that there's always that lapse where they don't know in between?
That's a korban olav. That's a different story. That's a different korban. That's a different circumstance also.
Oh, you're saying so. Okay, fine.
Right? So this question is, what circumstance do we call this? And therefore, which korban is atoning for it? Both have atonement. Neither one, he's bringing his own personal korban anyway. But the question is going to be, did Yom Kippur take care of him? Did Rosh Chodesh take care of him? Is he taken care of? If this happens in Cheshvan, does he now have a long time to wait till he has a kapara? That's the question. Tashma. So we come and listen. Tanya, we learn in a brisa. Al she'ein ba yediah lo batchila velo basof. So this korban of Rosh Chodesh and of the Shalosh Regalim atones for a circumstance where he doesn't have any knowledge before and not at the end. The chet shesofo livada. And even though he will eventually find out, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that it is going to be covered by Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov. That answers Yehuda's question.
Didn't we cover this before? Like that?
We did. So the way that, right, remember that we went through the whole Mishnah,
Yeah.
right? And as we went through the whole Mishnah, we gave sort of an overview explanation to have the basics
I
understanding.
remember something about using the goat for Yom Kippur from Rosh Chodesh.
That's correct. That we
And then-
did. When we got to the Mishnah, we went through. So the Mishnah is a little bit ahead of us
At
because
the
the Mishnah.
end, the conclusion was that it covers everything.
That was according to that man Amr, right? So that was the issue because you can use one from the other. So the
Yeah.
question that we had in the Mishnah was, great, if the atonement is equivalent, I understand how I could use it interchangeably. The problem was, according to this opinion, that we said that the Musaf offering for Yom Kippur has one atonement and the Musaf for Rosh Chodesh has a different atonement. How can you interchange them? And we said it's all the same category.
Yeah.
So we said it still can work. Now, but what we're doing here is now that we're zoning in one line at a time in the Mishnah, we're going to highlight each one, and now we're going to figure out how they are reading the psukim to be able to find their opinions. So now we've had the Tanakama's opinion. Now we're going to get to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon's opinion is Seiri haregolim mechaprim aval lo seiri rosh chodesh. He says not the same way. He says that the goat offerings for musaf of the shalosh regalim, those are going to be atoning for the tumah that we've been talking about, but not the ones for Rosh Chodesh. right? What is Rosh Chodesh for? Rosh Chodesh is for a person who is tahor, who eats something tameh. Up until now, all we've been talking about is the person is tameh, and he's eating the korban, right? We now flip the script, Rabbi Shimon says. The one for Rosh Chodesh, that's when the person is tahor and the korban is tameh.
If the korban is tamei and eats from the korban, then he makes him tamei.
Then it makes him tameh. That's right. But there's also an aveira, and Rosh Chodesh is going to take care of that for you. Okay, that's what's going on here. So now we got to look at the psukim and see how does he figure that. So I'm a Rabbi Elazar, I'm a Rabbi Shaya. So Rabbi Elazar says in Rabbi Shaya, "My ta'amei de Rabbi Shimon." What is Rabbi Shimon's reasoning? Where does he get this from? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'oson nasan lechem." Right. This is the a few weeks parsha ago where Aaron is serving as Kohen with his sons on this 8th day of the Yemei HaMiluim, and on that day Nadav and Avihu die, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells Aaron that he's got to eat the korban. They've got to eat this korban chatos, despite the fact that they're an onin, right? Despite the fact that normally a Kohen Gadol who's an onin still performs the service. Normally, he can't eat the korbanos of the service.
Korban chatas is tamei.
Korban chatas in that circumstances was not tamei. It's fine. It was fine korban, but Aaron was an avelis, or he wasn't quite avelis. He was an onin at that point, so he shouldn't eat the korban. But Moshe Rabbeinu said, "This is a special korban yemei miluim, and you should eat it." Then Moshe Rabbeinu shows up and he finds the korban chatas is burned, so he's upset. So he turns to her and he says, he says, "Why did you do that?" He's taking a look, and the korban that was burnt was a korban chatos that was for Rosh Chodesh. Because remember that the 8th day of the Yemei HaMiluim was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So not only did they bring the korban for the Yemei HaMiluim, but they also brought a korban chatos for Yom Kippur, for Rosh Chodesh, first ever Rosh Chodesh. Okay, so he tells them, "Why didn't you eat it? Why did you burn it? It was your responsibility to eat it in order to be able to atone for the congregation."
Did he get his sin for burning against and eating it?
So Aaron turns to Moshe and tells Moshe, that's talking about the special korban. Hashem may have told you that the special korban for today, I'd have to eat. But the korban for Rosh Chodesh applies the rules, the standard rules apply.
Korban olah.
And therefore, I'm not going to eat the korban chatos of the day because I'm an onin. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Aaron, you're right. Right? Good point. Right? Hashem told me the chatas got to get eaten. Say that was only the special korban for today.
So that korban chatas became an korban olah.
It did become an olah because there's differences between a chatos and olah anyway. We'll learn that when we learn how they sprinkle the blood and all. It did become one, but they burnt it like an olah, right? So they burnt the meat. So now, this pasuk v'haikra b'seir de Rosh Chodesh ksiv. What korban are we talking about? This pasuk, as we said, is talking about a korban of Rosh Chodesh, right? Korban musaf chatos of Rosh Chodesh. V'yolif avon mitzitz. And it says, right, and he says, this is laseis es avon aida, to atone for the sin, avon, of the nation. Now, it's also, the word avon is also written when it talks about the tzitz. The tzitz was this head plate that the Kohen of the Big Day Kahuna, and it said Kodesh LaHashem, and the Kohen had to wear this tzitz on his head. And we learn what the function of that tzitz was. It has a purpose. So, Nemar Kanavon, first let's link the two together. First it says here, by this Rosh Chodesh offering, it says the word Avon, the Nemar Laholan, and then when it talks about the tzitz, it says Avon. It uses the same word Avon. So now we're going to link these two mitzvos together. And Malaholan Tumas Basar, just like the Avera, just like what does the tzitz do for you? If you have a Tameh Korban that went on the Mizbeach, so you don't take it off the Mizbeach, you leave it up there. Now you think it's Tameh, you should take it off. The answer is, the tzitz is Maratza. The tzitz takes care of your Korban. If the meat becomes Tameh, the tzitz will allow it to go through. Okay, that's the rule of the tzitz. Now, the rule of the tzitz helps fix tamei meat, right? It's the tumah of the meat that the tzitz is talking about. So now, we're linking the tzitz, which is talking about tamei meat, back to the korban of Rosh Chodesh, and to say that the korban of Rosh Chodesh takes care of an avera of tamei meat. Afkan tumas basar. Okay, so now, im malahalan olin, afkan olin, maybe then, once we link the two together, we're going to say that just like the point of the tzitz is to be able to say, I could take this tummy meat and burn it on the mizbeach. Maybe that's the same point of the Rosh Chodesh korban, is to be able to tell us that it atones for any circumstance where we burnt any tummy meat on the mizbeach. Same thing. It has nothing to do with a Torah person who ate it. It's just a person, Kohen brought a piece of tummy meat on the mizbeach, and it needs an atonement. Maybe it's for that purpose. So the answer is, Avon ha'edah ksiv. It says it's for the sin of the people, which means that there has to be a person committing an Aveira here, not a community. A person commits an Aveira. Therefore, it's not about the meat being accepted, like it is by the tzitz. By the Korban Rosh Chodesh, it's about the person who ate the meat having an atonement. So therefore, again, the tzitz tells us it has to be about the meat being tameh, but then by Rosh Chodesh, it's an Aveira that has to do with a person, so therefore it must be talking about a person who is tahor, who ate the meat that is tameh. And that is how the Rosh Chodesh, that's what the Rosh Chodesh korban is for, according to Rabbi Shimon. Okay? So now, Michti, let's take a look at this. Okay? Migmar Gemiri Mehadadi. So, we have we've connected the Rosh Chodesh korban to the tzitz. So, Nechaper de Rosh Chodesh adidei de ve'aditzitz. So why don't we say that now that we know they're connected, and I understand that the Rosh Chodesh one is going to take care of a person who eats tuma, but now that it's connected to the tzitz, maybe it also takes care of the meat itself, right? Why doesn't it? It can cover both things. So nafkamina lehecha denishbar hatzitz. How could that? What difference does that make? Let's say the tzitz broke. They didn't make it tzitz, they didn't have it tzitz. And now they brought this korban up and then it burnt. So now when you bring the korban musaf later on Rosh Chodesh, that'll take care of it for you.
If the tzitz breaks, do you use a special material to fix it with?
You need to make a new one, right? But let's say they didn't make one yet.
What does it come from an animal, the material? What does it come
It's gold, it's gold. Yeah, it's golden. Amar Kra, so the answer is Avon. So the pasuk tells you the sin. Right? It's for one sin. Avon echad hu noseh ve'ein noseh beis avonos. This korban is for one sin. The Rosh Chodesh doesn't take care of what the tzitz takes care of. It only takes care of the one thing. Okay, so what about the other way around? V'nechaper tzitz adi deva ad Rosh Chodesh. How do you know the tzitz doesn't take care of both things? Its own issue of the meat and the issue of the person who eats a meat. Nafkamina letuma de'ira bein zelazeh. And that would be a nafkamina if somebody became tamei between one Rosh Chodesh and the next. So the fact that the Kohen's wearing the tzitz takes care of him. So Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Osa, it. Osa nosei avon, vein acheres nosei avon. Only the tzitz. The tzitz, it says, Osa, it. Only the tzitz takes care of this avera, right? So therefore that's it. Sorry, that means that this Osa, this korban takes care of this problem, not the tzitz. So therefore, this korban takes care of one avera, and the avera that it takes care of is not taken care of by anything else. So therefore, the tzitz gets one Aveira, or gets one circumstance, and the Aveira of the people goes to the Rosh Chodesh korban.
How does this get an Aveira?
The tzitz doesn't get Aveira. The person who eats the korban gets the Aveira, right? So Rav Ashi Amar. So Rav Ashi says. Rav Ashi says. Amar. Rav Ashi says. Ksiv hacha avon ha'eda. Right. So Rav Ashi says the pasuk. He's giving a different explanation for. A different answer for these questions about how you know it applies to one and not the other. So Rashi says, the pasuk says, by Rosh Chodesh, avon ha'eda, it is the sin of the nation, eda velo kodshim. It's the sin of the nation, not the meat. The hasam ksiv, and then when it's over by the tzitz, it says avon ha'kadoshim. It says that's the sin related to the meat. Kedoshim v'lo eda, which means the focus of the tzitz is on the meat, not on the person. And that's how you know the difference between the two. Okay, good. So now that's how we explain Rabbi Shimon. Everything's good. Now, Ashkechan seirei roshei chadashim demechapri al tahor she'achal es hatamei. Okay, so now we've understood Rabbi Shimon's position about how, when it comes to the goat of Rosh Chodesh, it's going to atone for a completely different situation where the person is tahor and he eats tamei meat. Right? Seirei regalim demechapri al she'ein ba yedia lo b'tchila lo b'sof minalan. But what is his source for the Musaf offering on the Shalosh Regalim, that will atone for the case that we've been talking about before, where you don't know before or during. And we say, well, what do you mean? You should follow the same way that we learned it before. We can't, because before, the drasha was from the Vav of Useir back to Rosh Chodesh. Since Rosh Chodesh took care of the Avera where the person didn't know and doesn't know now, so too the one by the Shalosh Regalim takes care of the same Avera. But according to Rabbi Shimon, that's not what the Rosh Chodesh offering is for in the first place. Which means he's got to look at the psukim themselves of the Shalosh Regalim and find the source for how we know the Musaf of the Shalosh Regalim takes care of the Tuma where he doesn't know all during the Avera. So the answer is, Amar Rav Chama bar Rabbi Chanina. He learns it according to the way Rav Chama bar Rabbi Chanina teaches. Seir u seir. Right? You have a connection between the seir and seir, like we said before. Hachinami seir u seir. Now, okay, the iskush seiri haragalim seiri rosha chodashim. So, therefore, we're following the same pattern. We're going to connect the Rosh Chodesh to the Shalosh Regalim. And we can't connect it all the way and say that great, it follows that takes care of the same Avera. Ma'asir de Rosh Chodesh b'milsa de Kodesh mechapri. Just like we know that by Rosh Chodesh, it's going to take care of an Avera of Tuma and Korbanos. Af Siri Regalim b'milsa de Kodesh mechapri. So too, we know that the Avera by Shalosh Regalim is going to take care of also something to do with a person and the korban. Somebody here is tamei, somebody here is tahor. That much we know. Now, what circumstance is it going to apply to? We're out of circumstances because v'chi tema nichapru ad rosh chodesh. If you're going to tell me, it should apply like the Rabbanan want to say, and cover the same averos that Rosh Chodesh took place off. Ha'amrinon, we said osa. We said it can't. Because remember, according to Rabbi Shimon, he said that the Rosh Chodesh, whatever the atonement that Rosh Chodesh is for, nothing else can give atonement for the same thing. That's how we knew that Tzitz couldn't fix whatever it was working on. So too the Musaf for Shalosh Regalim can't fix its Avera. So it has to be for a different Avera than Rosh Chodesh. Okay? Oson no se'avon ve'ein acher no se'avon. Okay, so great. So fine. So it's not going to be the case where the person is tahor and the meat is tamei. That's the Rosh Chodesh offering, and it's separate. If you're going to tell me that it's going to do the same thing as the Yom Kippur Avoda and the Yom Kippur one, so we said ha'amrinan achas b'shana, it only atones one time per year. Kapara zulo tehe ela achas b'shana. So therefore, this atonement that the Yom Kippur offering is for only is attained one time per year. So you can't use the Shalosh Regalim to also atone for that Avera. So on my mechapri. So what was it? So what's left? What are your choices? What's left to you? It's not a circumstance like the one we had by Rosh Chodesh, where the person was tar and the meat was tamei. It's not a circumstance of the Musaf of Yom Kippur, where the person, well, either the inside one, where there was a Yediyah, and then the way he knew, and then he forgot. And it's not the circumstance of the Musaf on the outside, where he forgot and then he knew. So what's left? If we're talking about the case where he knew at the beginning and then he knows at the end, Haibar Korbanhu, that would give you the Korban Olaviori case. If it's a circumstance where he knew at the beginning, but he doesn't know at the end, that we said was suspended sentence for the inner chatos. If it's a circumstance where he doesn't know at the beginning, but he does know at the end, so that's the outside Yom Kippur one. We're out of cases. So if you're left, you've got no choice left. The only case you could possibly have left is where you didn't know about it at all. That's the right? And of course, we go back to that. The Tanakama said that was from the word La Hashem by Rosh Chodesh. He learns it from the fact that you've got no choices. Once everything else is off the table, you've got to go there. Okay, now, that's Rabbi Shimon. Let's talk about Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's opinion is, Kol HaSa'irin Kaparos and Shava. Rabbi Meir says, the Musaf of Yom Kippur, the Musaf of Shalosh Regalim, and the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh all do the same thing. All of them are going to atone for all three of those circumstances. The tahor person who eats tameh, The person who knows at the beginning and then the person who forgets and then knows, and the person who doesn't know at all. Those three circumstances are going to apply to all three of those circumstances. Amar Rav Chama bar Chanina. So Rav Chama said to Rav Chanina, my time at Rabbi Meir. Where does Rabbi Meir get that from, that they're all linked together? Amar Kros Seir U Seir. Rabbi Meir takes a look at this extra vav in Parshas Pinchas by every one of the goat offerings, and he says, Hukshu kol asurim zelazeh. They're all connected to each other. It says this goat offering, and then it says, and this goat, and this goat, and this goat, which means every goat just does what the other one did. Vav Mosif al Inyan Rishon. Every new goat that you talk about adds on whatever the goat before did, so too this one does. Kasalka daitach kochad v'chad mechavrei gamar. So 1 second, you might have thought what he means to say is that you're learning one from the next one, meaning, go down the list. I'm learning the Rosh Chodesh one, and then I learn Pesach from Rosh Chodesh, so I learn Pesach from Rosh Chodesh. And then I will learn Yom Kippur from Pesach. So I'll go learn A equals B, and then B equals C, so C goes back to B goes back to A. There's a problem with that. Rabbi Yochanan, that can't be the way this drush is working, because Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol Torakula lemeidin limeid mi lomeid. Chutz mi kodshim. That idea of A equals B, therefore B equals C, right? You could do that in any drush in the Torah. But you cannot do that when it comes to korbanos. I told you, like, the rules of drushos by korbanos, it has its own unique special rules. If A equals B, you can only learn C things from B to C that are written specifically by B. You cannot learn anything from A just because you said that B has the same rules as A. Then you can learn B to C. You can't take things that you learned from A over to C. You can only take the things from B over to C. So therefore, if what you're suggesting here is that there's a link, that we went from this korban to this korban to this korban, that would create a problem, because these are korbanos. You can't learn from Rosh Chodesh to Pesach to Yom Kippur. You can't do that. So therefore he says, Chutz mi kodshim, she'ein lemeidin limeid mi lomeid. You can't learn A to B to C. It doesn't go in a chain. So holo kasha, but that's not a conscience and a problem, because we're going to explain what it is that Rabbi Chama bar Chanina means. Kulu mikama gemire. What we're saying is, by the end, we're all linking them back to Rosh Chodesh. When we say Rosh Chodesh and Pesach, then it goes and Sukkot. What do you mean and Sukkot? Just like Rosh Chodesh and Sukkot too. So everything goes back to the first. And not only that, but the and goes both directions too, right? Because we're saying it goes both directions. We're not only saying and Rosh Chodesh, but then we're going back and saying Rosh Chodesh takes from here to here. So each one of them, basically we have a series of ands, and what we're saying is the and links, right? Let's imagine like this. It's not A to B to C to D. It is A links to B links to C, it's a D, A links to C, A links to D, B links to D, right? It's all of them, right? Every single one of them all becomes linked together directly. And that's how Rabbi Meir is learning them all. All of them learn from all together. We add it all together. That's how this vav works. Okay, there's only one problem with that. Tinach called dikasav be useir. Thing is, if you go through the list, fine. I'm good with all of the different circumstances where it says the extra vav useir. The only thing is, but atzeres v'yom kippurim, when it comes to the korban musaf by Shevuos and by Yom Kippur, deloksev be useir. It doesn't say in the korban musaf useir. You'll pay attention this time when we get to the musaf on Yom Tov. It just says seir chatas by Shevuos. And also by Yom Kippur it says seir. So if it doesn't say u, it's not linked to everything else. So how can you tell me the musaf for Yom Kippur and the musaf for Shevuos has the same rules as all the other musafs? It's not the same. So Nolan, how are we going to link those? So that's true. Good point. So that the whole drasha falls apart. Ella Amar Rabbi Yonah, Amar cross Rabbi Yonah says, you're right, the pasuk says like this. Eila ta'asu laHashem b'moadechem. These you should do for Hashem at their times. Hukshu kol hamoados kulon zeh lazeh. all of the Yom Tovim are linked together. All of these appointed special times are all linked together. So therefore, all the Yom Kippur is called a Moed, and Sukkot is called a Moed, and Pesach is called a Moed. These are all Moadim, and so therefore all of them are going to be linked together. Okay, great. So that's going to work. Now, the Rosh Chodesh Lav Moedu. Problem is, Rosh Chodesh is not a Moed. So that's going to fall apart. How is Rosh Chodesh going to get linked back to the group if that's your source? So
is there a Rosh, like a holiday for the women because they can't do laundry or anything?
that's true, but we need to call it a Moed somewhere in the Torah. We need a pasuk that calls it a Moed. You're right. In some regards, it's a Moed, but where's the pasuk? So the answer is Ibra Rosh Chodesh Nami Kri Moed. Really, it's true. Rosh Chodesh is also called a Moed. How so? Kedamar Abaye. Abaye says, here's the drush that we learned that Rosh Chodesh is called a Moed. Damar Abaye, Tammuz Dahi Shasa Miluye Malyuhu. Tammuz, the year that they were in the desert, had an extra day. Normally, Tammuz is 29 days. And that's why there's exactly 3 weeks from Yud Zayin Tammuz till Tisha B'Av, right? Because it's 29 days during Tammuz. That year, which was unusual, they had 30 days in Tammuz. And Dichsiv, as the pasuk says, Kara alai moed lishvurei bachurai. This is pasuk in Eicha that says that you called upon me a moed, a time, in order to break my youthful ones. What does that mean? What happened is that because there was an extra day in Tammuz, the day that the Meraglim came back was Tisha B'Av. If there wasn't that extra day, the day they came back wouldn't have been Tisha B'Av. And because of the extra day of Tammuz, Tisha B'Av became the day of tragedy for Klal Yisrael. Hence, the Beis HaMikdashes were destroyed on Tisha B'Av as a result of that extra day in Tammuz. Wouldn't that be extra day of Tammuz? Everything would have been pushed, would have been a different day, right? So therefore, but we see that the pasuk in Eicha uses the word moed to describe that extra day of Rosh Chodesh that was established. So therefore, we have a pasuk that calls it a moed.
So what does it mean?
What does moed mean? So moed just going to be, I guess, an appointed time. So it's a little bit of an interesting. Usually we don't learn drushos from psukim of Navi in the same kind of a way, but the answer is that what we look at it is that sometimes there was almost like a Kabbalah Moshe Sinai that it's considered a moed, and eventually a Navi later on wrote down that it's a moed. That's how we, I guess, have to look at it this way. So therefore, when the pasuk says that Eila Tasu Hashem b'moadechem, these are the korbanos you're going to do on your moadechem, Rosh Chodesh is going to be included in that because it's also called a moed. So therefore, that's where Rabbi Meir learns that all the korbanos of all of the Yom Tovim for Musaf, all are going to atone for all of these averos.
That year, the day that was extra was referred as moed. Is that okay?
That's correct. Because you called upon me an extra moed, which was the extra day of Rosh Chodesh. That's right. There you go. Good. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Umoder Rabbi Meir. Now, Rabbi Meir is going to agree, Besir hanase bifnim shehu eno mechaper kaparason. Vehein eno mechaprin kaparaso. Right? So now, the only thing is, Rabbi Meir has now equated all the musafs. But the one korban that is different and distinct remains the korban on Yom Kippur on the inside. It's not a musaf, it's not included, it's the same. It is distinct from all the others.
Is there a certain name for that korban?
Sorry?
Is there a certain name for that korban?
We call that a korban chatos hanase bifnim. Right? That's what it's for. It's the korban chatos that's made inside. Okay? And we had learned that was the case where you knew, forgot, and you don't yet know again. That is going to atone only for that Avera, and none of the other korbanos are going to atone for it. So now, hu eino mechaper kaparason? How do we know that it can't take care of the same atonement as the rest of those korbanos? Because it says, kapara achas mechaper ve'ino mechaper shtei kaparos. Right? It says, by that atonement, that it atones for one, and it does not atone for any other Averos. Hein einon mechaper and kaparaso, and they can't atone for it, because Amar Kro, the pasuk says, achas b'shana. The atonement that this korban can produce only happens once per year. No other korban can take care of it. So kaparazu lo tehei ela achas b'shana. Okay, so therefore, we see the pasuk tells us that inner korban is it. Now, Tanya nami hochi. We have a brisa that supports this view of Rabbi Meir as well. Al she'ein ba yediyah lo batchila v'lo basof. if you don't know about it beforehand or at the end. Or the circumstance where you know about it at the beginning, but you don't know at the end. And the case where the person was tahor, and he eats the korban that's tameh. So what korbanos take care of that? All of the above. Seiri haragolim, the korban musaf of the shosh regalim, seiri roshei chodashim, and the seir hanase bechutz, and the korban mechaprin. All of those are going to take care of all three of those averos. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says. Now the point is, ve'ilu seir hanase befnim shayarak v'kaparasan nami shayara. What's off of Rabbi Meir's list? The korban that was done inside the Beis Hamikdash in Yom Kippur is not on his list, and the tuma that it atones for is also not on his list.
Why did you skip those ones out?
Because that we said, the pasuk tells us that only that korban atones for that kapara, and that kapara for that avera, and that avera is only atoned for one time per year. So it only applies to that one single korban. Okay, now, Haya Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon would say, Seiri Roshei Chodashim Mechaprim Al Tahor She'achal Asatame. So Rabbi Shimon would say, right, his perspective was that it was an escalating order, right? He said that the musaf for Rosh Chodesh would take care of the tahor person who ate tameh, as we said. Now the Shalosh Regalim is going to take care of the one that doesn't have any knowledge at the beginning or at the end, and the Yom Kippur one is going to be taking care of the musaf for Yom Kippur is going to be mechaper on that he does on the one where he has yediyah at the beginning but not at the end. Okay, so we have all of the circumstances.
How can you know at the beginning but not at the end? How can you know?
Because you forgot. Right? So now, that's how Rabbi Shimon says Rabbi Shimon's perspective on each of these korbanos is everyone to each its own. Right? Each one atones for its own purpose. Okay? So, Bishlama de Rosh Chodashim lo mechapri ad regalim. I understand how he knows that the Rosh Chodesh one doesn't take care of the same one as the Shalosh Regalim, Damar Krab, because we already said, the pasuk said, Avon, it's only the one for Rosh Chodesh takes care of one Avera. Avon Echad, who no say, Ve'eno no say Shnevos, the one for Rosh Chodesh can't take care of two different ones. It's only one. Ela de Regalim, but the korban of the Shalosh Regalim, Nechapru ad Rosh Chodashim. Why can't it take care of the same Avera as the Rosh Chodesh ones do? So the answer is, Amar Kra Osa. So the pasuk says, by Rosh Chodesh, that it takes care of it. Meaning, Oson no se avon, vein acher no se avon. That avera that the Rosh Chodesh korban takes care of is only taken care of by the Rosh Chodesh korban and no other korban. So therefore, Rosh Chodesh has its own unique niche. It doesn't take care of anything else, and nothing else takes care of it. So therefore, it's off on its own. I understand how the ones for Shalosh Regalim don't take care of the ones for Yom Kippur. Because the pasuk says Achas B'Shana. It says by Yom Kippur that the Yom Kippur korban only happens once per year. Kapar Zulo Tehela Achas B'Shana. This avera can only be atoned for once per year, so therefore the Shalosh Regalim is not taking care of it. Ela Yom Kippurim Nichpuru the Regalim. But maybe the Yom Kippur korban has extra power to be able to take care of the avera that the Shalosh Regalim one takes care of. Therefore, Makra Achas kapara, achas mechaper ve'eno mechaper shtei kaparos. Teach me that the Yom Kippur korban only acquires one type of atonement. It cannot do a second atonement, therefore it does not take care of the averos of the Shalosh Regalim. So it's distinct. Now, so that means the Rosh Chodesh is distinct, the Yom Kippur one is distinct, hence the Shalosh Regalim one is distinct. And that's how Rabbi Shimon learns all the different korbanos. Now, v'ha'ksiv achas b'seir hanase b'fnim hu dichsiv. So he says, but one second. The word achas, that it says this atonement happens once per year. Remember that Rabbi Meir didn't learn it. Rabbi Meir said that was talking about the inner korban, right? That one was unique and distinct. The musaf one isn't unique and distinct. The musaf one maybe can handle other averos. So Amar Kra, so the pasuk says, Milvad chatas ha-kipurim ve'isgush chitzon lipnimi. The answer is that according to this drush, he connects through this pasuk the inner korban of Yom Kippur to the outer korban of Yom Kippur. Just like the inner korban of Yom Kippur only takes care of one type of avera, so to the outer korban only takes care of one type of avera. And that's where he has a distinction from Rabbi Meir's position. Rabbi Meir said, I'm not going to take care of multiple, the outer one can take care of multiple averos. Rabbi Shimon says, no, The inner korban takes care of one avera and nothing else. The outer one takes care of one korban, one avera and nothing else. Rosh Chodesh takes care of one avera and nothing else. And therefore, there's only one thing left for the Shalosh Regalim. That is one avera for that one type of korban. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Omer Mishmo. So we said Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda said that that it's an escalating thing, right? The Rosh Chodesh is going to atone for a tahor person who eats tameh. Then we add on that, and the Shalosh Regalim, according to him, is going to take care of somebody who's tahor or eats tameh, just like the Rosh Chodesh one, but also adds on somebody who doesn't know at the beginning or at the end. And then Yom Kippur is the strongest one, and it's going to take care of all three things. The guy who's tahor or eats tameh, the one who doesn't know beginning and the end, and the one who doesn't know at the beginning, who knows at the beginning but doesn't know at the end. Sorry, the one who doesn't know at the beginning and knows at the end, right? So he's going to take care of that. So it's escalating, right? The Rosh Chodesh has only one thing it takes care of. Then the Shalosh Regalim takes care of two averos, and the Musaf for Yom Kippur is going to take care of three averos. And we're probably not going to get through all of these drushos. Maybe we'll just stop here and we'll pick up Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda's opinion next time. There's no point in rushing it through.